Kathleen, I gotta ask you about one of the biggest topics that surfaced a week or so ago, 2 weeks. There was the John David Jackson situation, him reaching out to Team Ward, and him not reaching out to Team Ward. That's his story. So, how do you feel? Where do you stand with all that, Team Ward?
Well, you know what? I obviously choose to believe John, but you know what is really cool about this? Clearly, whatever Ward's people were doing was to try to cause some sort of strife in the camp, right? It had the opposite effect. The truth is, John and Sergey have a relationship. We all have relationships, right? And sometimes the people we're closest to, we want to kill.
It's true.
And sometimes we get... You know, like you maybe have some little resentments, they build up over time. And then you finally have it out. And then you all kiss and make up and everything's better than it was before. Well, that's what happened. Force them to have it out. They're both saying that they're stronger than they ever were before, that their relationship is better than it was before, and that Sergey and John have been working more closely this time in fashioning a strategy. So they really did us a favor, and I need to thank them for that.
When the news first came out, did you kind of view that as them playing mind games? I mean, I think they dropped it the day before Sergey had his media day, so it seemed like the timing was perfect as far as they're concerned.
Well, John told me back in February what they'd done, and on the press tour there was a moment in Oakland or LA, I can't remember. They all smushed together in my head, but there was a moment where Virgil started yelling, you know, don't be so sure John's going to be there. And I was saying, look, I'm trying to say to him at that point, like, no, your plan didn't work. No, you're going in the wrong direction here. And I just figured I'd let it go. But I had spoken to Sergey about it, spoken to Agus about it. John was open with us and had told us back in February that they approached him. If you think about the logic of all this, why would you go put yourself in a position where you're approaching the other guy? If he turns you down, it could really blow up in your face. It doesn't make any sense. Sergey said that's how he feels about it too. He says John's not that dumb. If you're gonna leave, leave. But that's not what happened. It's like somebody came up to him and offered him a job, offered him more money than he's making. So he talked to them about it. Anybody would. And he decided to keep the job he had. So it worked out fine.
How is their relationship? Because it seems that everyone says that it's a little strained, that he actually doesn't listen to John David Jackson, even during the fight. But John David Jackson's kind of like the gym trainer, and then when it comes to the fight, it's a different...
Well, again, I think after 5 years together, and perhaps there was starting to be some strain, and that was certainly the case in the last fight. But what this ended up doing was getting the two of them to, I think, both recognize that they were somewhat at fault in different ways, and they reconciled. So now John is like he's saying, Sergey's listening to him like he hasn't in years. So this is tremendous, because John's fighting style, wasn't that different from Ward's. He knows how to beat Ward. And so he's communicating that to Sergey.
Assuming all goes well, I mean, obviously I know you're not looking past this fight, but assuming everything does go well, is there anything bigger than this? I mean, I know the Adonis Stevenson fight is still out there, but I mean, is that even a bigger fight than this?
It really depends on a whole lot of things, how the fight turns out. For example, were Sergey to blow him out of the ring in a round, I don't think you can make a rematch at that point. Arguably, at that point, Sergey's beat him twice. If it's another close fight, well, it's a very different scenario, and then perhaps it calls for that. There's just no way of knowing.
So
it's not that cut and dried. It is when you're the champion and you lose your titles and you get the chance to get it back. You have that in a contract. That makes sense. And yes, that's when you plan it ahead of time, and for better or worse, you're doing the fight again. If it happened a third time, if the circumstances dictated, then we'll deal with that when the time comes and decide what to do.
But you're open, so you're not totally shutting the door on a third fight.
I would never shut the door on anything. Never say never. That would be foolish. I've been in this business too long to think that you could ever predict anything. So. Yeah.